Zhou Lu wakes up as the most feared old villain in the cultivation world, but the terrifying part is not his enemies. It is that his own disciples may be even more dangerous than the righteous sects hunting him. Spoiler warning for chapters 0 through 9. This is a Chinese manhua recap about a martial fantasy world where reputation can be deadlier than real strength. Zhou Lu has become an ancient white-haired master with a monstrous name, a mountain stronghold, and disciples tied to violence, betrayal, and old grudges. The problem is simple and brutal. Everyone believes he is still an unbeatable dangerous opponent, but his actual condition is unstable. So every scene becomes a gamble. He must act like the supreme villain master, survive attacks from outside forces, regain control over rebellious disciples, and use mysterious system rewards before anyone realizes how fragile his position really is. The story opens with a martial world already on the edge of war. Snowy mountains, flying vessels, and armed cultivators show that this is not a quiet sect drama, it is a world-scale confrontation. The 10 righteous sects are closing in, and the white-haired elder at the center of it all is trapped between 2 disasters. Outside, enemies want his head. Inside, his disciples no longer truly obey him. Zhou Lu realizes he has transmigrated into the body of an old master with an enormous villainous reputation but a dangerous lack of usable power. Then the tone shifts when a glowing system window appears and begins retesting. That one moment changes the setup from pure survival horror into a system-powered comeback story. Zhou Lu activates the strange interface, blue energy erupts around him, and his new goal becomes clear: survive the siege, discipline his disciples, and climb back to the top. Chapter 1 brings us to the cold mountain sect itself, where Zhou Lu's appearance alone carries the weight of a legend. Younger followers gather around him, including a pale purple-clad woman and a red-haired young man, but the mood is not relaxed. Everyone watches him like one wrong word could decide their fate. Zhou Lu moves through snowy peaks and open skies, keeping the posture of a supreme master even while judging his own limits. System-like panels and card-shaped rewards appear, suggesting his strength is no longer a simple cultivation level but something he must manage tactically. A green energy effect seems to restore or empower him, and the sight of huge flying creatures in the clouds expands the scale of the world. Zhou Lu is not simply returning home. He is testing how much of the old dangerous opponent's authority he can still borrow. The pressure explodes in Chapter 2 when airborne enemies and rival cultivators attack across the mountain battlefield. Zhou Lu stands calm while younger disciples and onlookers visibly panic around him. That contrast is the heart of the chapter. Everyone else sees disaster, but the old master must behave as if this is beneath him. A green-robed elder-like opponent steps forward, attacks fill the sky, and Zhou Lu answers with layered bursts of blue, pink, and rainbow-colored energy. A huge circular shield or energy gate blocks the assault, while system windows appear during the clash, implying his peak state or rewards are limited and carefully timed. The battle turns chaotic when a golden-red card-like force disrupts the enemy side. By the end, Zhou Lu ignites with fiery power, and the witnesses begin to believe the legend may still be real. Chapter 3 raises the danger from group battle to personal pursuit. A massive golden beam falls from the sky like a divine sword, and Zhou Lu faces a fiery opponent whose aura feels less like a normal cultivator and more like a blazing dangerous opponent. The surrounding disciples and younger onlookers can only watch as golden flames, sword-like energy, and blue-white defensive force tear across the snowy mountain. This chapter matters because it shows that Zhou Lu's temporary power can create miracles, but it also drains him. After the clash, he appears to use a divine movement technique to escape, thinking distance has bought him safety. Instead, the fiery opponent catches up and reveals he has been waiting. The message is clear: Zhou Lu's reputation scares many people, but the strongest enemies are not fooled forever. Chapter 4 opens with Zhou Lu turning overwhelming force into crowd control. Airborne attackers swarm around the stormy mountain sky, but he answers with a massive golden technique that blasts enemies apart and forces the fight to stop. The important part is not only the destruction. It is how calm he remains while everyone else is scattered, falling, or retreating. Another purple system-style notice appears after the battle, making it feel as if each successful performance feeds his comeback. After the clash, the story slows down as Zhou Lu travels with a smaller group through mountain terrain. The shift from sky battle to scenic valley gives the characters a moment to breathe, but it also resets the tension. They meet more figures along the way, and the chapter ends with Zhou Lu facing a hostile presence while his companions react behind him. Chapter 5 moves the story from wandering conflict back toward the Sect's central stronghold. Zhou Lu stands in a bright mountain landscape with younger companions gathered around him, and the group reacts with nervous surprise as he speaks and prepares to move. A readable clue points toward the evil sky pavilion, which becomes the destination and symbol of his authority. Zhou Lu demonstrates control over movement, formations, and a glowing interface connected to barrier-like power, reinforcing that his control is not only physical strength but also command over the Sect's territory. The chapter then cuts away to guards or servants near a rocky cave entrance, building suspense from the enemy side. Inside an icy cavern, a large seated man reacts in shock to news that the old master has returned, proving Zhou Lu's name still shakes people before he even arrives. Chapter 6 starts with Zhou Lu centered inside a glowing cultivation formation, presenting him like an untouchable master. But the chapter quickly reminds us that image and reality are not the same. A cheerful young female disciple with brown twin bun ornaments speaks with him in an ornate interior, and Zhou Lu keeps his controlled, authoritative mask while quietly evaluating his situation. System cards and blue interfaces appear again, including a critical block card trigger. That detail is crucial because it means his survival may depend on prepared tools rather than raw strength. The danger becomes immediate when a masked or white-robed attacker appears. Zhou Lu recognizes at a glance that the enemy is an expert and even considers calling for help, which undercuts his invincible image. The chapter ends as the attacker closes in, turning the master's private weakness into a deadly cliffhanger. Chapter 7 pays off the attack with Zhou Lu reasserting dominance. A blue-robed top-knot man is overwhelmed by force inside the hall, and the young brown-haired girl disciple watches closely as the old master pressures him. The scene works because Zhou Lu is not only fighting. He is performing authority in front of disciples who need to believe he is still untouchable. A blue system profile appears, turning the interrogation into both a plot scene and an information-gathering moment. Afterward, the chapter returns to the mountain sect, where disciples and visitors react nervously around him. Then the story widens again with scenes of a snowy cave area, a small red-bunned girl, a huge pale beast, and a black-haired woman with a white bird. The finale shifts back to Zhou Lu triggering a lucky draw, where golden light reveals a glowing white-horned creature. Chapter 8 focuses less on raw battle and more on Zhou Lu's control of information. His disciples begin to realize he predicted Mingshi Yin's actions and had the situation under control before they understood it. Around the pavilion, younger characters react with a mix of comedy, worry, and awe, while Purple System notices hint that tasks and rewards are still quietly shaping his path. The story cuts through mountain routes and forested areas, where armed figures move and a confrontation erupts. Blue-green energy knocks opponents back, suggesting that Zhou Lu's influence extends beyond the hall even when others act outside it. Back indoors, the master gathers disciples before him and gives a clear assignment. Old Fifth must investigate the Heavenly Sword sect, especially its eldest disciple, Zhou Jifeng. This turns the next conflict from defense into active investigation. Chapter 9 returns to the High Mountain Sect complex, where Zhou Lu spends time near the rabbit-eared young girl while a red-haired disciple and a white-robed woman remain close to the action. The calm does not last. Flying cultivators approach the mountain in a large formation, turning the sky into another invasion route. Zhou Lu and the Sect's side answer with overwhelming spectacle, golden fire, blade-like force, and a huge green formation sweep through the air and drive the attackers back. The fight reinforces the pavilion's image as a place no enemy can invade casually. After the battle, the chapter shifts indoors, where where Zhou Lu studies system-like information and reflects on cultivation. The emotional center becomes the rabbit-eared girl, who is scolded, comforted, and guided as purple aura rises around her. The chapter ends with her serious expression, suggesting her training is about to matter. These first 10 chapters work because Zhou Lu is winning with a mixture of reputation, timing, and system tools. He is not a simple overpowered master who can relax. He is a man trapped inside the identity of a feared villain, forced to perform confidence while enemies test him and disciples measure his every move. The 10 righteous sects create outside pressure, but the more interesting danger is internal, disciples who obey, doubt, admire, or hide their own motives. By chapter 9, Zhou Lu has protected the mountain, restored some authority, and started assigning missions, but the story is clearly not settled. The next major question is whether he can truly discipline his dangerous disciples before someone discovers the gap between the legend and the man inside it. That is the full chapters 0 through 9 recap. Subscribe for the next part, where Zhou Lu's restored authority, Old Fifth's mission, and the hidden threats around the evil Sky Pavilion should push this villain master into even riskier territory.